And I want to welcome everyone here in the room with me today. We do have a few visitors with us, and we're happy to have those visiting in the room and here on Zoom. We are the Susquehanna Valley Ethical Society, and we're also known by our members, the Valley. A few announcements before we get started. Just to note, we are not meeting on Sunday, May 29th. So we want everyone to have a delightful Memorial weekend, and hoping weather holds for all of us. June 5th is a very important Sunday afternoon for us. It is our membership business meeting and a town hall meeting. And the town hall meeting is titled, "What is our next move?" Please be watching your email, your newsletter, for important details. I will say that you're going to be getting an email probably this evening, which will have our bylaws. The board did revise, make amendments to our bylaws. They were definitely in need of some work. And so the bylaws will be in your email for you to read. And then there is also a ballot. It's an electronic ballot. You can choose to vote electronically. Just make sure that that electronic ballot is into us this Saturday, which would be June, which would be June 4th. Make sure we would have that. And you can also vote in person here on Sunday, June 5th. Our mission statement is going to be read by Olivia. Hello, Olivia. Olivia from Ohio.
Hey, there she is.
Okay. The Susquehanna Valley meets each Sunday to deepen our sense of the meaninglessness of life, to shine light on the ideas with which we guide our choices, to give us courage to take the higher path, and to get to know one another over time, an appreciation of each one's unique and incomparable worth. And together we work for a world where love and justice cross all borders. Our statement of affirmation is we affirm the worth, dignity, and uniqueness of every human being.
Thank you, Olivia. And our mission here at Susquehanna Valley Ethical Society, we are a community of all walks of life that learns and grows together through shared values, doing good and nurturing the human spirit. Our vision is to join together committed people who seek to make the world better through self-care, community care, and culture care. We are a safe and courageous place in which members can build a community of friends, find inspiration and purpose, provide moral education for their children, celebrate seasons and life events, and clarify their world views. And I'm going to turn it back to Olivia for some poetry. Olivia is our resident poet.
Okay, this is a poem that I wrote last night. It flows like streams of consciousness. The ingredients are everywhere, like man and woman, or call it an energy or something, more palatable to palate. A river going one way, catch a lift downstream, no imagination, no questions, no dreams, blues and pinks, 2.5 kids in rings, until it meets a bend, perhaps enveloped by the ocean. Perhaps birth can happen at any moment. Decades take the place of seconds and we're expanded, a massive depth that doesn't stop. Clean reflection in the mirror. We know the limits of our bodies, but the expression bubbles up from inside, churned with passion and evaporated up. knowing new states of our change of view, floating in the sky's ocean on clouds, miles traveled and reinventing new, until disrupted with a rumbling sound, too heavy for heaven, too full of I thought I knew, and it comes pouring down. The cycle of becoming, minutes, years, and decades running, continues.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you very much. And now maybe we could share some joys or concerns here this afternoon before we move into our program with Dr. Nori Rost. I also want to say hello to Guy joining us from Elizabethtown, PA. So anyone have something they'd like to share here this afternoon, a joy or a concern? Nancy?
Well, kind of an obvious joy is the joy of enjoying springtime. This is my favorite season. I love the blossoms and the trees and the smell of the lilacs, and it's just delightful. I wish I could stretch spring out to be like 2 seasons, but I can't. So that is a joy. A concern, this is a heavy topic, and I won't dwell on it, but it's been so heavy on my heart these past weeks, thinking of the atmosphere in this country regarding women and their keepers of reproductive power, and how there is this very oppressive force trying to regulate which should not be regulated and take away people's privacy and choices. And I'm just appalled by it all. So that is a very, very deep concern. And I just wanted to articulate that.
Thank you, Nancy. I've and hearing Nancy share that makes me think that maybe some of us need to get together at some point here very soon where we can share these concerns and what's on our mind and in our hearts right now. I think that's what we're all about here at Ethical Culture, here at SVES, is coming into community to do things such as that. Jen.
And I wonder if our group combined with some other groups could have some sort of demonstration in this area.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a topic for another time. Yeah.
I was just about to say that, like Patty was talking about coming together and having, sharing concerns, and that's true. And then putting our concerns into action as well. So there are other groups that are having action, and we can join with those groups to have action as well.
Certainly.
So I can put something in the chat.
That would be great, Jen, because we do know that as far as our society putting out a demonstration or a protest, we're going to lose our insurance. It's already happened one time that our insurance was taken away from us because they thought we were organizing a protest, which we weren't, but it was perceived that we were. So we want to, yes, we can participate with other groups, or we can kind of meet off the radar and just happen to say, oh, look at all of us. We just happen to meet here in the corner with our signs. So, are there any other joys or concerns? I would like to say I'm hoping for our families right now that are with COVID, that you have a really speedy recovery and that you'll return to your best health. So thoughts with you. Okay, all right. Anthony, hello. Just want to say hi. Anthony coming in from Boston.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
Good morning, Anthony.
Good to have you here, Anthony. Okay, so as I was saying to Nori, I had given the bio for Nori to our consulting leader who is not here. So I don't have it. So Nori's been saying, hey, she can talk about herself here and what brought her to ethical culture and the New York Society. So I am going to turn things over now to our speaker, Dr. Nori Rost, who is the leader of the New York Society of Ethical Culture. Welcome, Nori.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I am the new leader of the New York. This is Ruby, my golden doodle, who has this instinct of knowing when I'm going to talk so that she can come up and butt in, but I'll kind of push her to the side. I am the new leader at the New York Society for Ethical Culture. I've been a minister this July for 32 years, and I was with Metropolitan Community Church for 20 years. That's a queer Christian denomination. Then I kind of outgrew the box of Christianity and made what I like to call my U-turn into Unitarian Universalism. And I was a minister at All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church in Colorado Springs, Colorado for 13 years. And now I'm fulfilling my lifelong dream of living in New York City and serving the Ethical Society here. It feels like a really good fit. And I'm super happy to be here and to be here with you today in Susquehanna by means of Zoom, and to share a little bit about my own coming out story. And this is something Jay asked me to share. I'm going to be 60 next month, and I came out as a lesbian in 1978 when I was 16 in Topeka, Kansas, where we had a bumper sticker that said, "Welcome to Kansas, please set your clock back 50 years." And that was fairly accurate. So, so I'm just going to share a little bit about what it was like to come out as a young person and lessons that I think that are still applicable today. First of all, I think my coming out story is different than a lot of people's coming out stories. It was, I had dated guys. I had great little, I just never seemed right. And I'd write great little Dear John letters. My first boyfriend in 6th grade, though, he dumped me, Jerry Crow. He, I think he already had a mustache and, smoked cigarettes, and he broke up with me. And I was always a weird child. So in response, in my 6th grade candor, I wrote Jerry Crow a little note, which was the lyrics to Greensleeves. "Alas, my love, you do me wrong to cast me off discourteously." I mean, what the hell must he have thought? He's like, what? I don't know. Anyways, so then I through junior high, had little boyfriends and never seemed to quite get it the same way my friends were getting it. And then when I was 16, I was working at a Bonanza Steakhouse in Topeka, Kansas, and the owner mentioned that her daughter and roommate were coming from Chicago to manage the store. So there I am in the back room bussing tables one day in a brown polyester skirt and a orange polyester shirt with cowboy prints on it and a straw cowboy hat that was slightly too large. And in through the back door of that restaurant, while I was bussing tables, walked these two young women. They both had short feathered hair. They had on chinos and a button-up shirt. And I looked at them and I knew two things instantly. And I said to myself in that minute, that's it. They're lesbian and so am I. It was like, the ugly duckling seeing the swans flying overhead. I had found my people. And so I flew out of the closet because I'm very claustrophobic. And it was such a joy to finally realize why I never fit in anywhere else. And here I did. So I came out as a lesbian when I was 16, and I didn't even have a girlfriend for almost a complete year, which is also unusual. But I self-identified, and this was right when shops in the mall that made customized t-shirts were just coming into vogue. And I made myself a t-shirt that I wore to high school that said, "How dare you presume I'm heterosexual?" And I came out to my friend Eric McGreed, who I suspected. We came out to one another at a thespian retreat, which I don't think it could be any better than that. And he and I actually went to the senior prom together wearing matching tuxedos. The following year, I came out when I was a junior. So as I said, I came out. This is Topeka, Kansas. Not a lot of action happening there, and I knew that there was a group that met that was called TLC, the Topeka Lesbian Community, and they met at the Unitarian Church in Topeka. And I don't know, maybe a Sunday afternoon. And I enlisted my best friend, Sandy, who was straight, to, we would go and we would like get helium-filled balloons and we'd put them on the windshields of the car, you know, and in the parking lot. And we made we had 3x5 cards that we would tent. And then on the outside in Sharpie, we would write, read me. And on the inside, we wrote things like, gay is good, we are everywhere, the lambda sign, which was a big symbol of the queer community at that time, meaning strength and diversity. And then we would leave those in like Ramada Inns. We'd go to Ramada Inns and walk down the hallway and just drop these tinted little messengers of goodwill. So it was, like I say, very different than many people's. And then when I got a girlfriend, two things happened my junior year. One was that my mom married her longtime live-in boyfriend, and then they moved to this tiny town in Kansas called Eudora, which had a population of about 2,000. So I could finish my junior year and senior year there in a school that had probably 20 students, or I could choose to stay in my childhood home, and my oldest sister and her husband would become my legal guardians, and that's what I did. So I could graduate with my friends that I'd been going to school with since kindergarten. So I'm the youngest of 5. And when I was born, my siblings were 5, 4, 3, 18 months, and then me. So very stair step. So my oldest sister, when I came out at 16, she was 21. Like, what did she know, right? She, you know, she ultimately, it was fine when I didn't have a girlfriend, but when I got a girlfriend, the beginning of my senior year, she kicked me out. And I came home one day to this note that said, you have 2 weeks to get your stuff and leave. And so I moved in with my new girlfriend, who was 21, and she lived in Manhattan, Kansas. So now I've got to live in both Manhattans. It's very exciting. So I moved to, I only needed one class to graduate, and that was US government. But I liked school, so I had a full schedule. But when I got kicked out, I got rid of all my classes. I moved US government to first hour, and then I got a full-time job to supplement my part-time job still at Bonanza. And so I got very adept, because of course I would often, Manhattan, Kansas is about 50 miles from Topeka. And so it was about, you know, about an hour, just under an hour's drive from where I lived to where my high school was in Topeka. And many times I would oversleep because I had been working the day before, then the evening before. I got home at midnight, and I got very adept at calling my guidance counselor and saying, this is Kari Shaver. My sister Nori won't be in school today. So I always had excused absences, but by the second semester, I had missed so much school that I had to get an admit slip from my guidance counselor to be able to be led into my US government class, the only class I had. And one day, like, it was like a week before graduation, maybe a week and a half. And I go in and I'm like, hey, I need my admit slip. And he starts to sign it, and he tears it up and he says, how do you think you're going to like summer school? And I'm like, you can't do that to me. And he's all, I'm not doing it to you. You're doing it to yourself, Nori. So he said, if you miss one more day, or then you're not going to graduate. You'll have to finish this class in summer school. So I didn't even miss senior skip day. I was there. I mean, the fear at my heart was like, I'm going to be there. I'm not going to summer school. So I did. I graduated, and I graduated with honors. So I'm sitting there in the graduation ceremonies, and this, you know, the keynote speaker, some alum who owned a business in Topeka, was giving us a good, you know, rousing talk. And he said, and I'm saying this to all of you, to those of you that barely made it, and to those of you that are graduating with honors. And I said to the girl next to me, I did both. I barely made it with honors. So so that was, but it was, you know, it sounds really, you know, I make it sound kind of light and funny and breezy. And it, you know, I'm the youngest of 5, and so that's what I know how to do, is just to make do. And I didn't call up my mom and say, Mom, Kari's kicking me out. Didn't even cross my mind to do that. I'm just like, okay, I'm on my own now. And I have a full-time job and a part-time job and a girlfriend who I realized pretty early on was an alcoholic, or was at least drinking way too much for my comfort. My dad was an alcoholic. So I saw that. She was 21 and I was 17 when we met. Sounds almost like a song, but not quite. I remember that. So Eric, my friend Eric, and I went to the senior prom together. We wore our matching tuxedos. And then we went to the Lambda, which was the gay bar in town. And I'd been going to the Lambda since I was 16. I would go in very early before they charged a cover and sit with my friends who would order drinks. And then after a while, I would order my own drinks and leave a tip that was the amount of or more than the cost of the drink. And I mean, I clearly wasn't 21. I mean, it was very obvious, but they also knew that I was a young queer kid. And that was the only place we had in Topeka, Kansas. That in the Topeka lesbian community, which I didn't dare go to because I was a minor. And sure enough, like the minute I turned 18, I started going to I went to the TLC. And the first thing they did was, I'm so sorry, we have to ask you this, but can you show us your ID so that we know you're not a minor? Because, you know, God forbid somebody's parent accuse these women of, you know, trying to turn a child. So I went to the Lambda with Eric on prom night, and my girlfriend Peggy was there, and she was being overserved, which happened a lot. So I just left her there and I drove home to Manhattan all by myself. I was in my little 1973 Ford Maverick. It was green with the like vinyl top, super cool, 8-track cassette player. I'm talking high end here. And I was driving the highway, I-70, and I see this like big old station wagon jalopy kind of thing with the hood up and this couple standing next to it. And so I, of course, pull over and saunter over to them in my tuxedo and said, do you need any help? And they're like, yeah, we're going to this biker convention in Denver. And our buddies took our bikes on their trailer, but now our car is broken down. Clearly this biker couple, right? And like the guy had this beard down to here and they both had tats all over. And I'm like, well, come on, you can join me. I'll let you have a place to stay for the night. So they stayed at the house there with me, and I took them to the truck stop the next morning. They gave me a joint, which I thought was a fair exchange for a night out, right? But my girlfriend wasn't too pleased to hear about that. So right before graduation, where I barely made it with honors, I made the determination that Peggy, my girlfriend, was an alcoholic. And at the bar one night, because she was drunk, she was making out with another woman. And I just stood behind them till they were done. And I tapped her on the shoulder and said, my things will be out in the morning. And they were. So it was a very, I felt all those times when I was driving to and from Manhattan, even though I was very out and very okay with my sexuality, I felt almost like an orphan, because I was like living this existence that nobody else in my, you know, none of my little friends in high school were living this existence, and my family, it was just kind of like, I didn't really hear from them, right? It was just me and Peggy, who was drinking too much. And so it was a very profoundly lonely time as well. And, you know, the things that saved my life were the Lambda, the bar, which was the only place people met, and then the Topeka lesbian community, which as soon as I became an adult, I was able to participate in. And then shortly after high school in September, I enlisted in the Air Force with one of my sisters, as a way to get out of Topeka, Kansas and get some stability in my life. So then that's when I became a Christian, by reading the Little Green Gideons, New Testament Psalms and Proverbs they give you in basic training. I'm sure the Gideons would love to know that they converted a lesbian, but they didn't convert my sexuality. I mean, I knew I was a lesbian, right? So that wasn't going to change. But I was reading about this social justice guy that I was completely falling in love with. And I just needed to know if he could fall in love with me. And one night at my permanent duty station, Castle Air Force Base in California, I had this dream. And in this dream, I was hiding behind a bush, looking down at a river embankment where Jesus was talking to a bunch of people. And I didn't know them, but I knew that they were all straight. And I wanted so badly just to go and sit at his feet and listen to him. And I said to myself, you can't do that, you're a lesbian. And in my dream, Jesus looked right up at me and said, that's okay, Nori, I made you that way and I love you. So that's when I became a Christian. I mean, I woke up the next morning, I prayed the sinner's prayer in the back of the Little Green Gideons, New Testament Psalms and Proverbs. I signed and dated it. I still have it on my briefcase. And that very same week, we had a new dorm manager who came, and I locked myself out of my dorm room. I got the key. Clearly she's a lesbian. And so we're trying to ask questions because this is way before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. This is 1981. And she mentioned she had just started going to a church that just opened that week. And I'm like, what's the name? And she said, Metropolitan Community Church. And I had heard of that. So from the very beginning of my becoming a Christian, I had a church to go to. And that church served me in good stead for many years. And actually, it was when I went to seminary and got an actual theological education 10 years after I'd become a minister. That was when I outgrew the box of Christianity and realized I don't believe in hell. So what does it mean to be a Christian minister? Well, it means you do the social justice ministry of Jesus. But ultimately, as I said, I outgrew that and became Unitarian Universalist, and now I'm in ethical society. But every single thing about who I am today, every single thing about my life choices, where I live right now, my job, all stems from that moment in the back room of the Bonanza Steakhouse when Jamie and Pat walked in. And I said, oh my God, that's it. They're lesbian and so am I. What I would have liked to have had and didn't have is a youth group to have been able to go to. I would have liked to have had some level of support at my high school. There was no gay straight alliances back in 1978. It was me and Eric who were out. That was it. And I mean, I'm friends, of course, as we all are, on Facebook with people I went through grade school and junior high and high school with. And there's at least 5. And at the time, I'm like, she's got to be a lesbian. She is so butch. This woman has got to be a dyke. And they've all since come out, but they were not out. They were not out in high school. That was just me and Eric. And we were the only two. So it was a lonely time to be a queer young kid in Topeka, Kansas. And what would have helped me immeasurably would have been to have some sort of a youth support group, some sort of a support group at my school, something. I mean, we didn't even have gay pride yet. In 1979, on my actual 17th birthday, the lesbian comedian Robin Tyler came to Topeka, Kansas and did a show. I was still single at this time. I hadn't met Peggy. And I was just like, had such a crush on her. She's really super butch. And she had a comedy LP called Always the Bridesmaid, Never the Groom. And she was great, but that was it. We didn't have gay pride. We didn't have any kind of, we didn't have the internet. Until I met Eric, or we came out to one another, we'd known each other. I didn't know anybody else. And I went to the little Kansas downtown independent bookstore and bought all 4 books on homosexuality that they had. Gay American History, Lesbian Woman, The Lord is My Shepherd and He Knows I'm Gay, written by the founder of Metropolitan Community Church, and The Best Little Boy in the World. And Frontrunner by Patricia Nell Warren. Those books were like my companions. And then after I met the Topeka lesbian community, then I was introduced to women's music, lesbian music. Chris Williamson and Mae Christian and Teresa Troll and Trep Fury, and all these women who had this underground women's record label called Olivia that sang about women loving women. And that just gave my life wings. So that's my, Westboro Baptist territory, absolutely, in Topeka, Kansas, that Kimberly writes in the chat. So so that's what it was like to come out as a queer person. Now, so I said I'll be 60. So it'll be 44 years I've been out. So it's been a long time. I'm a professional now. I have to make friends to come out to somebody new on National Coming Out Day. Hi, my name's Nori. I'm a lesbian. So good to meet you. But it was, it was a lonely experience. And yet at the time, I did what you had to do, which is you gut it out. You just go, just continue to show up and gut it out. So that's my story.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you very much. So Nori, are you able to stick with us for some sharing? I will stop the record. And hello, Jay. Hi, Jay. Yeah.
Hi. It's so good. Thank you. And I'm sorry for my tardy, everyone. I had to handle a pastoral care meeting over here in Minneapolis. So if you don't know, I'm out here at the First Unitarian Society, but I'm Nori. Everything that I caught was everything that I'm so glad that y'all were in very beautiful hands.
Yes.
I will not get emotional because I just love to see when people show up and bring themselves. And I'm so glad that this community also offers their hands back to you in the same way, in you being heard and seen for your work, your labor of love and your ministry and your call, and still being authentically who you are. So thank you so much. I have like tons of questions sitting with me right now, but I won't even do that. I'm gonna let it, Patty, I'm gonna turn it over to you, but it's so good to see everybody.
Okay, Jay, I just want to say I watched this morning. Wonderful. Okay, so yes, I am going to stop the recording now.